It's not the one meal, it's what you make up about it, and then the following behaviors that actually ruin your progress. So, good point. Are you someone who has weight loss goals or health goals in general, and you feel like you are handcuffed when it comes to socializing and eating out at restaurants? If so, welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how to order at restaurants in a way that feels good in regards to your goal, as well as give you tips on how to eat in a way that serves your goals. So if you're ready, listen up and lean in as we elevate your mind. Awesome.
What a good segue from our last episode.
Yeah. And it's very much where I'm at because I'm eating a lot of meals out with my dad being in the hospital. Now, for some of you, you might be like, well, Christina, why aren't you meal prepping? I don't have the emotional energy to do that right now. So I can make the choices we're talking about today and feel perfectly fine with what I'm choosing. So because we are with baby and I have to return back to the hospital, we're just going to jump right in. Now, restaurant dining can feel very challenging when you're trying to make health conscious decisions. It can be overwhelming, and that overwhelm oftentimes can lead to the fucks. And then you have all this shame and guilt because you didn't have a plan or at least tools that you can use to just eat in a way that serves your body and your hunger and fullness cues. So we oftentimes too go to certain places and we eat the same thing. I remember a client who told me she's very much a people pleaser, and the waitress was waiting for her to make a decision.
Oh no.
And rather than she was just waiting. Yeah, she was just waiting. And so I just ordered the food that I would normally order, which was this super high calorie dense meal, instead of being like, hey, can I get a second?
Yeah.
So that's some of the things I see people struggle with. What about you?
I see like a lot of uneducation around how to read a menu, like how to read between the lines and see what it really means. So like there's like char-broiled versus like grilled versus fried versus sauteed, garnished,
creamy,
like, words in there, like a cream sauce or like a red wine, what's it called? Not like a liquid, but like reduction, like all of that kind of stuff. And so a lot of times when I'm preparing clients to go out when they're first working with us, is like, let's look at I want you to pull up the restaurant menu and I want you to read it. And I want you to choose the 3 things that you would like to order, and let's review them together and see what it actually means. Yes. And that way it's better understand like battered means fried, like, you know, and that's like, it's okay if you want the battered fish or battered, whatever it is, chicken fried steak, but then just realize that the rest of the goals throughout the week have to adjust for that meal.
Right. Well, it's very easy to go over. I tell my clients this all of the time. I actually had my client, Marissa, she is having dinner with her boss, and she was like, I'm going to need over 3,000 calories. And she's been with me for some time to realize like that's going to be a high calorie day because it's like a paired menu. And she's like, so I think I want to adjust just to have a higher calorie day for that day. I was like, great. And she's at maintenance, you guys. She's not even in a fat loss phase, but she just knows the importance of not getting back. She's trying not to get back into the all or nothing mindset. So rather being like, okay, these are adjustments I can make. And she told me ahead of time, and we're going to make those adjustments. Right. So it's really important to create balance because let's face it, like eating, especially for the women we work with, they're ambitious, high achieving in these like executive positions. They have meals catered in. They have, representatives from different, I think of my clients in like the medical field, from different like drug companies bringing in lunch, or they have these conferences, or they have to wine and dine people, or they're just on the road all the time. And it can feel overwhelming. I know personally how to do this, as I was someone that traveled often for work prior to while I was creating the Mindset of Matter. And I know it can be done. It does take some education, as you said, and planning. So let's talk about the pre-planning that we often do. Now, this may not always be the option, but if it is the option, this is how we'd want you to approach it. And like you said, just look ahead at the menu. Like look ahead at what you want, right? Like what are you going to have? And what this does is it reduces that decision fatigue in the moment, reduces like my client, like having the waitress stare at you and you don't know what to order. And again, it allows for more mindful choices when we're not feeling that anxiety of the people at the table or the waitress or just being in the moment. We already have a set plan.
Yeah.
So how would you track that?
Good question. That was what I was going to talk about. So I would put this in. So let's say today's Sunday, right? Say we're going to go eat on Thursday, because that gives us a bit of a cushion period. And then we'll do an example if we were going to go out to eat tomorrow. So on Thursday, what I would do is look at the menu ahead of time because I'm planning, and I'm going to find 2 to 3 things that I think I would like. Okay. Then what I want to do is really decide, because some people are going to be like, well, I don't know what I want until I get there. And that's okay. But at least have your options planned out that fit in alignment with your goals. And realize that like, if you do want the beer battered fish, like you are going to have to bank more calories as opposed to like the flame broiled trout. Right. And so what I'm going to do, say I do know what I want, is I'm going to put it in my tracking planner. So my Fitness Pal. And then I'm going to work backwards from there. So I'm also going to add in extras. So meaning I'm just going to add in random 10 grams of butter. If I'm going to do the beer battered fish, like I'm going to try and find a restaurant equivalent in there, and I'm not going to cheat myself, because that's the other thing that I'll see is like add in more than you think it should be, because even if you go over, it's totally fine. Now you've got cushioned calories. And so I'll add in the 10 grams of butter or something like that, maybe like 5 tablespoons of olive oil or something like that. And then if like, say they don't have like a beer battered fish, right? Then I'm going to add in like a cup of breadcrumbs in there. And it sounds really silly and meticulous, but like if your goal is maybe fat loss or better understanding of what calories look like when you order out, then you just kind of have to throw it all in there so you can truly see. And I would not use the restaurant menu calories. I mean, I would use that as a gauge, but I wouldn't rely on it. I wouldn't be like, oh, look, like they say it's only 400 calories. Like it's probably not. And that also is going to vary depending on the restaurant and who's scooping it and who's cooking it. So like I said, I'm going to put it in there and then I'm going to work backwards. So then I'm going to fill in my days from today until Thursday and see if I can average out the calories and the macros that I'm looking for the week.
Yeah. Well, and another thing I think you mentioned this is like a lot of clients will track, but they'll track like a uncooked quinoa or, Mike's
rice.
Yeah. Mike's beer battered fish. When Mike makes his beer battered fish at home, he does it in a way that's, with panko breadcrumbs or something. I don't know. Nutritionics, there's Nutritionics, there's Fast Food Calculator. A lot of big chains have actual calculators where you can put the meal together. Now, yes, as Amanda said, it's not going to be spot on, but if we are at least using the restaurant or the restaurant's, equivalent chain restaurant. So if you're having a steak at the local steakhouse, use Outback's equivalent of that. You're going to be within the ballpark compared to Mike's steak or Mark's steak at home, which I know is literally 260 calories because it's just a steak with like salt and pepper and there's no butter, there's no nothing on it. That is one of the biggest mistakes I see people making. So Nutritionics. The other thing you can use is ChatGPT. I love doing this. I love showing my clients this, where I will highlight, because you can usually see a menu online, and like highlight, copy it, put it in ChatGPT, say, give the estimate calories for this restaurant meal, including the added oils and butters. And it will list it out. You can put you can ask for the macros and then use it as a quick add if you are tracking in MyFitnessPal.
I think another thing to consider is like the occasion. So for example, if like you always go out with these clients, we'll say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? Because that's part of your job is to entertain them and take them out, then consider like that's probably not like a special dining event. It's something that you just maybe stay more in tune with their goals, as opposed to if you're going out with your husband for your anniversary, right? Like you may allow yourself more fluctuation with that kind of occurrence, as opposed to more flexibility with that occurrence rather than something you do every week. And like maybe you guys go to a different restaurant that you enjoy with these people, the clients, but it's one of those things of you have to determine like what is your goal here too. And even consider like if they always order appetizer, dinner, and dessert, maybe we just choose like the appetizer or dessert. Maybe we just choose the wine and the entree and not worry about the other bookend ones, things of that.
Or I see this often, like we want to have a drink, but we also want to have an app. So things I go to are like shrimp cocktail, or ceviche. There's an added protein. And no, I agree. It's really finding that compromise. I see this. I have a client who does travel a lot, and it's almost as if every meal is like, she has that scarcity mindset of like, I'm never going to get this again. And while she does share portions, they're still adding up, right? She's at minimum not getting her protein intake in for the day, and then wondering why her body composition is changing. And that's such a huge point, is like, this is just a meal, like, especially like breakfast. Like breakfast is relatively the same everywhere, and you can get a relatively healthy breakfast anywhere, even in a hotel. I've done this many of times. And so thinking like, I want to, when I do what I indulge, I want it to be something that's like with people that I love and for a special, and you don't have to indulge just on special occasions, but I want it to be intentional, and I want it to be something that, is in alignment with what my goals are. And the other thing though, too, is like you said, like track this ahead of time, track it first, and then back into the rest of the day. If we are tracking food, meaning I put this big meal in with all the butters and oils, all of the drinks, even if it's a Coca-Cola, put that shit in there, and then track the rest of the day. And what we're not doing is skipping a meal or any of that, because what that's going to set you up for is feeling hungrier once you get there, and you're most likely going to overeat or just like have these bites, licks, and tastes of things because you're still hungry. And tracking, making sure, even if you're over, and our clients will be like, hey, I'm going to be over today. I forgot to tell you my sister's birthday is tonight, and we're going to, whatever. So really kind of creating a mental game plan for it. I mean, we have, Google Maps on our phone to tell us how to get to places. You can be the Google map of the restaurant, look ahead, see what you want, have those three things, kind of see where you're at in regards to using Nutrition X or ChatGPT, and then decide from there, put it in, and then track the rest of the day with the other meals intact, not skipping any meals.
And so looking at like the actual choices when you're reading the menu, you want to prioritize protein all the time. Like this is where I'm like, stay away from the pasta dishes, stay away from the pizza dishes, because that's not going to have that much protein. Whereas if you get like a fish fillet with vegetables or something like that. So when we're reading the menu, we want to look for grilled, roasted, or baked options. Like I said, battered, fried, that's going to be a lot more coating on there, and it's going to add in the calories. Now, it's not to say that you can't ever, but most of the time your choices should be grilled, roasted, or baked.
Or raw.
Or
like
what?
Shrimp cocktail. Like shrimp cocktail, or it's raw.
Well, even like sushi is a perfect example, right? They have like tempura, like shrimp tempura inside of it. Okay, well, that's going to have more calories than just like your standard like shrimp roll, right?
Right.
So watch for the cooking methods for sure, like the fried, but also watch for like the fancy words of creamy, smothered, garnished, doused. There's some other ones that I'm thinking of that are in my brain that I can't think of right now.
Well, even
go ahead.
Like breakfast potatoes, like potatoes I had this morning, they weren't baked. They're fried.
Yep.
Those are fried potatoes. That's why they're so crispy,
Perfect example is like homestyle potatoes versus hash browns. Like hash browns are probably going to be fried. Homestyle potatoes are probably going to be cooked potatoes.
I would say the opposite.
Oh, really?
Hash browns are usually cooked on a top.
I'm thinking of like
the stovetop.
Like the nugget hash brown things.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking like hash browns.
Usually those where you would ask of how they cook.
Yeah, you could ask too. Absolutely. So yesterday we went to Oso with my family, and I was raving about their French fries because I'm a French fry snob. And then they changed their French fries, and now they double fry them. And I fucking hate double fried French fries. Blech. So also ask if the French fries are not double fried. When we think about the protein too, like the order of how you eat, right, is going to be important there, which we'll talk about here in a sec. But the other thing is making smart carb choices, right? So like the French fries, I wanted to have the French fries and I did, but normally like this morning with the potatoes, I didn't actually like them. Easy swap is some fruit. Yep. Right. Or rather than French fries, do a baked potato and then get like your butter and stuff on the side so that you can control putting it on there. Right. Mm-hmm. Another swap, my client went to this, he was on a long trip and he could have had a ton of noodles because he was in like, like the Middle Eastern part of the world, and Tokyo in Japan. And instead, I said, okay, you can have the noodles, but ask for extra veggies and let's focus on eating those vegetables. That's easy, an easy swap. Or like I talk about all the time, like I eat egg whites when I eat out just because I already know there's going to be more fats and that egg yolk, while delicious, is going to be added fat unless I'm eating steak and eggs because I want.
Oh, yeah. So good.
So good. And then, of course, the fat options. So oils and butters, right, are going to be higher. Most of the time, I feel like at restaurants, they have like this, like that margarine butter stuff. Mm-hmm. And even looking at dressings is a huge one where you have like your ranch or blue cheese, your 1,000 Island. That's going to be higher calorie than maybe like an oil, like a oil and vinegar, or maybe like a light vinaigrette. While yes, there's oil in it, normally those types of dressings are going to be lower in regards to the fats. And then avocado, I see this often where it's like literally a half of an avocado.
Yep.
And I'm like, avocado is very good for you, but that's going to be a pretty high calorie little nugget of avocado. So just also portioning it out, which again, we will talk about, but really thinking about, okay, a quarter of my plate is protein, a quarter of my plate is a carb, or I'm eating in that way. And then the other half of the plate is my colors, right? Mm-hmm. Salad, fruit, vegetables, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm. And then thinking about like, okay, when I'm ordering, some things to modify. So like you talked about with the baked potatoes, order it on the side. Like you do not need 4 tablespoons of butter in that baked potato. I remember Michael and I went to Outback when I was pregnant, and like, cause I just wanted like a dry steak and, a baked potato. And he ordered essentially the same thing. I got my butter on the side, and his came out, and he was like, dear God. And Michael loves butter. Don't get me wrong. But for him to be like, dear God, about butter on a baked potato, I was like, well, yeah, like, you don't need that much. At some point, butter is just more butter, So asking for things on the side, dressing on the side for sure. Even like nuts and seeds that come on salads, people think salad automatically is the healthier option. It may not be. Like it may be easily the higher calorie option just because of the dressing and the nuts and the seeds that they put on it. And sometimes even like the meat protein that you choose. So substituting sides like we talked about. So like your guy, he had the option to order additional veggies. So one of my favorite things like for Thai restaurants is to get the, what's it called? The curry, but ask for double protein, right? And
so I love the double protein.
And make sure it has vegetables with it. So everything should have a protein and at least some color. And then the rest we can make do. Also understanding like with Thai restaurants, for some reason, I just don't feel like they give you a lot of meat when you order the curry. So asking for like, how much meat do I get? Like understanding the portion sizes of those restaurants is going to be a game changer too.
Yeah. Well, and other things too is like oftentimes they use the word bowls, right? So like a bowl is usually the healthier option, right? So, I always ask them like, so what's the ratio of this bowl? Is it mostly like all the rice, or is it like a good balance of everything? I am huge with asking for alternatives or putting things on the side. Again, swapping out. And most restaurants are used to that. They're going to have a second option, right? Of the side salad versus the chips or whatever that is. And that's okay. It's okay to ask for those things, especially if it's not a love food. So we talk a lot about like foods versus love foods. Like foods are the foods that you don't you could be without, like, it's not life changing. So if you're not like, oh, I love these potato chips, like just opt for the salad, right? Now, maybe you like the potato chips more than the salad, but you don't love the potato chips, but you love maybe maybe you're getting like my sister and my mom got like a caprese chicken sandwich. They split it, maybe you love that. And then you like the salad, and then you eat your love foods first, which again, we'll get to. But yes, substituting is great. And then understanding portion sizes. This is hard for clients because they'll be like, well, we all kind of shared things. What I love for you to do is grab your plate and put your little portions of each thing on the plate, right? Just to have this visual, right? Okay, this looks like about a half cup of each thing. So when I go, if I am tracking food, I can track it, or even on the food journal, that gives me a good understanding of like, okay, this is what we ate. And then, guesstimate what the calories are rather than eating one thing, having a completely bare plate. Because guess what you're most likely to do when you do that? Most likely to put more than you normally would if you had each thing there. But sharing can be difficult, or, sometimes if you know that it's a large meal, we like to get the Costa burritos from Scramble. They are very calorie dense and they are delicious. So I will make that 2 meals in a day. So half of it in the morning, half of it for lunch. And you can do something like that or take it home, right? As long as it, reheats well. And just, avoiding the, you're not going to be on, what is that competition show where he eats all the Man versus Food?
Oh, yeah. He's like talked about like where he gets super sick from all that too.
I'm sure. Avoid the supersized or whatever, larger portions, the hungry man option, right? Or even I think of like pizza, where people will literally be like, well, these hidden like red flags were like the pizza. That's yes, it has more protein, but it's probably higher in fat than anything else. What'd you say?
Sausage and like bacon, which is like,
and ham and
pepperoni.
Whereas you could have like the cheese pizza and be fine, or like a barbecue chicken pizza. That's always my go-to if they have it.
Yep.
It tastes delicious, but just watching for those red flags. So hitting calories in your dressings, like high sugar things, additional add-ons. This is another thing that I'll see for clients that eat meals out is like, they'll track it. And then I call my client out on this. And I was like, I saw you post that on Instagram and you literally like, that wasn't just a piece of, steak. Right. There was all this shit on it. And it's just like take a picture or put it in somewhere. So you're like, okay, this has blue cheese. It has some sort of sauce on it and the steak, and then the vegetables have, some nut, almonds shaved in it, or cheese, Parmesan. Don't forget that stuff. Just because it's small doesn't mean that it doesn't add up. Now, again, we don't want to be like completely obsessed with this, but if we are having to eat out a lot, unfortunately, you kind of have to be, right? Because these are things like you can keep off, or at least keep track of them, because if we're learning what the reality is of these meals, we've got to account for everything on that plate. Oh my God. We were in Saratoga Springs and I was cutting at the time. And I remember I got this swordfish that had polenta, carrots. It just had so many parts to it. I was like, oh my God. Look, I mean, I know how to track that, but I was like, this would be hard to track.
Yeah. Well, and that's something else too. That's why pre-planning takes advantage of it, because you read the menu and you're like, okay, polenta, carrots, and swordfish, add that. And then when you get it, you're like, oh, there's a lot more in here than I thought there was. Well, then you just add it, right. Whereas if you didn't track, you'd be like, okay, crap, did I have that? Did I have this? Never mind. I'm just not going to track because it was too complicated. And so at least you have like a foundation. Again, the tracking ahead doesn't have to be perfect, but it does set you up for success of how to plan and how to modify your week. So that way you can enjoy the calories without feeling that guilt and shame and going over and then being like, oh, screw it, it's Thursday. Like I'll just start again on Monday and kind of let this weekend go. And then we
Which
also
we then do
talked
over and
about,
over.
yeah. And we talked about too of okay, if you want to drink, but maybe we don't have the dessert then. Or if you want to have the dessert, then maybe you don't have the appetizer. Maybe we make a more leaner choice of protein for the meal. And there's a lot of modifications there. And it's not to say that you have to do this every time, but if you dine out a lot, then we need to really be kind of honing in on these skills, as opposed to Michael and I don't really go out to eat right now, obviously. And so when we do, I'm not as concerned because I, throughout the week, can easily back off my calories. But if I was going out to eat every day because of my job or something like that, then yeah, I need to kind of learn how to be flexible with and choose what I like instead of, for example, if you and I went out to eat and you ordered an appetizer, or the four of us went out to eat and you ordered an appetizer that I don't really like, I'm not going to eat it to please you. It's okay to say no. I'm okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just want to say something there. Just because you have a meal out, what Amanda's saying is you don't have to adjust your calories. That one meal out, even if you ate at maintenance, that one meal out, unless if you're planning and having eating with intentionally eating and mindfully eating, it's not going to matter, right? But if you eat like this all the time, then it is going to add up. Yes. So coming back to the mindfulness of it is we want to set the intention, right? And remind ourselves, is this an indulgent or is this something I do all the time? If it's something that I do all the time, or I have another one that we didn't talk about, I have a lot of these events over the next couple of weeks, I really need to hold myself accountable and say, okay, I have these goals for myself. What are the compromise that I'm going to have, and set the intention. If it's a celebration and you want to indulge, set the intention. I'm going to indulge today. And I know that I'm going to not see whatever results I'm trying to see over this next week, maybe because of this meal, or I'm going to see weight anomalies because of this meal. I'm going to feel more bloated because of this meal. And I'm okay with that. Right. Mm-hmm. The other thing about intent is people will say, well, I'll just use that as my high calorie day after the fact. That's not healthy to do it that way. It's and I'm going to, when we go to Steak 44, I talk about this all the time. I am going to eat probably almost 2,000, 3,000 calorie meal because that shit's good. I know that. I said it. I enjoy it and I eat, but I'm not, just because I'm intending on and overindulging doesn't mean I'm going to feel like shit afterwards either, So the other thing is how you eat, right? So if I'm eating my protein and my colors first, then I go to that love food, which might be a macaroni or, some sort of sweet potato hash, whatever it is. I'm going to be a bit more full. And if we're eating to an 80%, which is kind of, I can get up and move around, but I'm not overly stuffed, but I am satisfied, then I might not eat as much of that love food. I might just have a little portion of it, but I have enough to feel that emotional satisfaction, right? So that's one of the biggest things that changes our clients' lives. Eat that protein first, then your colors. And I know sometimes that's not as simple, but today I had an omelet with ham and cheese. I ate that first, then my bread. Then I went to the potatoes and I was like, these aren't very good. So I didn't have them. And I was still satisfied, right? And so that's just going to, because protein takes longer to digest as well as high fiber foods, you're going to just feel fuller longer if you were just to eat the love food first. That's going to kind of work through your body pretty quickly. And now we're having the protein and everything else afterwards.
I would also add to that is we're talking about listening to the hunger, kind of making these mindful choices, but eat slowly, enjoy this. Again, even if you're out with clients and this is something that you regularly do, slow down, let them talk, enjoy the conversation, think about the food you're eating. I think your perfect example is the chocolate. When you have the chocolate, you're thinking about the chocolate, you're enjoying it, you're creating the texture and association there. So it's one of those things, because the other thing too is I'll see clients are so excited that they're going out to eat and this is a great meal and my husband and I just love it, but then they rush through it because it's so good. And then they're walking away stuffed and they feel guilty and they're like, man, I didn't even really enjoy that. And as you said, the taste buds are in your mouth, not in your stomach. So slow down And then also
make love to that food, baby.
Yeah. Also remember to drink your water throughout it too. A lot of times, sometimes hunger is actually thirst. And so make sure that you're keeping up with your water and not just slamming back the cocktails, because that's going to change your hunger cues too.
I like the idea of slowing it down, enjoying it, make your server angry because you're not like, you're not just flipping through tables because you enjoyed yourself, and have that moment. Right. And now, again, whether that's an indulgent meal or a meal that you have every week with your coworkers, like, slow it down. That's great for digestion. It's great for the relationship with the food and the enjoyment, as Amanda said. Just make it last as long as possible. And, just begin to realize, okay, like I did today, I don't actually like these potatoes. So I'm not going to eat them just because it's on your plate. You could, like the French fries yesterday, I was like, here, I'm going to give these back to you. I gave them back to her immediately. I knew I didn't like them. I was not going to eat them. Oh yeah. I was like, I fucking hate double fried French fries. And I had sweet potato fries instead, which were delicious, but a lot of people will just eat the thing that they don't even like those potatoes. I don't even like them.
They're like, I ordered it. Send it back.
Right. Send it back. Or if you're like me this morning, I was like, I'm actually full. I had the whole omelet, the piece of bread. I'm actually full. So move on. I actually haven't eaten since then. And it's 2:00 because we've been recording. I need to eat.
Mm-hmm. I would also say with alcohol, like, track that, please, because that has calories. But also be aware of like the pina colada is going to have more calories than like a whiskey neat, right? So if you want the pina colada, great, but just realize like, okay, that has a lot more calories and I need to adjust for that. And I always tell my clients, if they're going out to eat, I want to know, how many drinks are you going to have? And they go 3. And I go, let's plan for 5. Right. Because there's probably going to be those extra calories that you plan for the alcohol somewhere in that meal. And just understand that different bartenders have different pours. So even again, if MyFitnessPal says a glass of wine is 6 ounces, like they may give you 7, which changes the calorie.
They give you 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. I take pictures of my clients' post. I'm like, that's 9 ounces. Don't track it as 5. I'm a stalker. But yes, no, I agree with you. And that's an easy swap, right? From like the espresso martini to the vodka soda. Like you're saving a good amount, right? And you, as we talked about before, you can use the soda method where you drink halfway down, fill it back up with soda. Now you have another vodka soda, less alcohol, which is where the calories are from, but your brain still thinks you're drinking the first vodka soda. So anyways, as we've mentioned here, we want to ditch this kind of cheat meal mentality as well. Cheating indicates that there's something wrong with what you're doing when we're saying you can eat meals out. This is a part of your life, especially if this is a part of your work and your career or a way that you connect with your partner or friends. This is a part of your life. It's not a cheat meal. It's a fucking meal. Another meal. It just happens to be higher calorie. So let's just call it what it is. Cheat meal is not going to, that mentality is good, bad, right, wrong. And we want to get away from that. We want to step away from that. And we have to realize like this is creating flexibility, which is going to create sustainability. I remember being in my very rigid mind and I would either not eat or I get like a crudité, like veggie platter, and then eat when I get home when all my friends were eating. Like, I think about my dad who is very, very sick. And I was eating today and this thought in my mind was like, maybe I'll skip the jam. And I was like, you can have jam. You enjoy the jam. It's one piece of toast. Your dad enjoys the jam. And he, like it was just like, he's literally close to his last date months. And I also think about that too. Now I didn't have the fuckets, but I loved the jam. So I had the jam, and that again is sustainable. It was moderate. I had moderation, right? Because it wasn't like I didn't use the whole thing. Or it's like, I did this a couple mornings when he was in the hospital, I did that same thing I did when I was at the funeral, where I did the 2 egg whites, the bagel, and the side of butter. And I only use half of the butter. I like a bagel. I love a bagel with butter on it, but I also know that I can moderate it, and all of that creates sustainability and consistency, and it's not going to ruin my progress. So that's my thing. What else? Anything else?
I think so. Just to put this in context real quick, is when we talk about one meal won't ruin your progress. If you have 3 meals a day, which hopefully you're having more, 3 meals a day for 7 times 3 is 21. And you have one overdo it meal, that's only 4% of your week. So it's not even like a huge fraction of the week or a huge percentage of the week. So choose to have the overindulgence. And that's another thing what I say with clients is like, make the choice. Don't just be like, oh, I don't know. My friends ordered the appetizers and then we decided to get a 3rd bottle of wine. It's like, choose, think about it. Think about the process. Like, do you really want to, rather than just letting it happen?
Stop blaming it on everyone else.
Yeah.
Have some fucking agency.
You have autonomy in this.
Autonomy.
So choose to have the autonomy of that. And then realize like one meal is only 4%, if that, if you're only having 3 meals for 7 days of the week. You have so many other opportunities to move forward and go back to like your bare minimums, your sustainable habits.
Yep. Because it's not the one meal, it's what you make up about it. And then the following behaviors that actually ruin your progress. So good point. Awesome. Well, if you would like some support, we both help our clients, especially our clients that travel a lot. We look at menus, we help them decide, we help them plan, and so much more. So if you're interested in learning how to do that and getting coaching around this, customized coaching, check out the Clarity Call link or our website, mindsetofmatter.com. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether you're watching on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever it is. If you love us even more, 5-star rating and review would help us out tremendously. And other than that, don't forget we have the Resilient Woman 21-day reset, which starts on March 31st. This is going to help walk you through our sustainable eating guide, which applies to eating at home or out. It's going to give you opportunities to learn how to move your body depending on the energy levels that you have. More importantly, we're going to audit why you have this relationship with food, your body, etc., and learn how to begin to create a foundation that is healthy, sustainable, all the things we talked about on this episode. So check out the show notes for that. Other than that, myself, Olivia, and Amanda want to leave you with this one last thing.
What you say in the mind,
you see in the mirror. Goodbye.
Bye.